This is the Red Line, and I am your host, Jimmy Red. This is episode 4. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys have enjoyed the last 3 episodes. Last week, I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple mistakes that were made during that show. Last week, the mistakes I made were the quarterback for Florida State. I accidentally called him DJ Francois. I apologize for that. His name is DeAndre. I know that. I have no idea why I said DJ. Also, I said USC was not playing Stanford. I said it was UCLA. It happened to be USC. So I apologize for that. USC and Stanford played, not UCLA and Stanford. I'll discuss that game here in a bit. So let's get into this here show. We got college football for you. Week 2, pretty good games. And the week 1 of the NFL has started. Football is back, folks. Let me tell you, I'm ready to go. So let's start this with some college football. AP poll came out. New rankings moved around. Let's see here. You got Bama in at 1. Oklahoma jumped from 5 to 2 after they beat Ohio State. Clemson 3, USC 4, Penn State 5. That's your top 5. Looks pretty good to me. I can agree with that. I think we got the correct teams there as of now. Oklahoma jumped like they should have by beating the number 2 team in the country. Bama looks really good, so I can stick with that. Also, the Big Ten definitely has the most teams in the top 10. Strong conference, huge, amazing. I mean, they have Penn State 5, Michigan 7, Ohio State in at 8 after dropping from 2, and Wisconsin in at 10. It shows how strong that conference is. It shows the talent is there. But don't count the Big 12 out because Oklahoma just dropped that and just beat Ohio State. If you look at the SEC, they have 1 inside the top 10. That's Bama in at 1. The next one you see is setting 12th, LSU. So you're telling me the SEC is where the power's at? I can't agree with it. I'm going to go with the Big Ten being the strong conference right now from top to bottom. But you have to look out for the Big 12 because, as you saw, Oklahoma can still upset one of the best teams in the Big Ten. So let's go with the first game here. It's an SEC school, Auburn versus Clemson. Clemson ended up winning the game 16-4. 14-6. Clemson won. They did it with Kelly Bryant in his second game, which he started last week, looked very good, and he went 16 for 29, 181 passing yards, and he rushed for 59 and 2 TDs. The kid's got legs, he's got wheels, seems like he's got a pretty good arm on him, and he went against Auburn, whose defense is, I'm not saying it's great, but it is manageable defense. It's one of the better ones, I'd say, in the SEC. Wouldn't say it's the best one. I wouldn't say it was the worst one. I'd say they gave him what they went there for. Clemson needs to work on some stuff, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but their defense doesn't have to work on much of nothing. They only allowed 117 total yards in that whole game to Auburn. That's it. They gave up 0.9 average for rushing. 0.9. They rushed for 38 yards. That's all Auburn rushed for was 38 yards. When you got shut down like that by Clemson's defense, you definitely have to work on your offense. Auburn's offense has to work to get better and figure it out. They got the kid from Baylor, Jared Stidham, to come in and be their quarterback. Now it's time to shine. I understand the kid has an arm and needs time to throw. The SEC, the Big Ten, are where the defenses like to shine. That's where the big guys are that really rush you. If you want to have the time to throw in a pocket, you have to be more of a West Coast quarterback. And that's where most of those guys are, who have the time to throw and set in the pocket. Baker Mayfield has that time. The sacks in that game were crazy. They come and show it for the defense as well. Auburn had 4. Clemson had 12. That ties the school record for Clemson. 12 sacks in a game. The offensive line got manhandled on that. I mean, manhandled. Clemson, if they play like that on defense, is going to have no problem winning the ACC, especially with Francois out for the year. Takeaways from that game, Defense looked good for Clemson. If Kelly Bryant plays good ball all year and he keeps his head on straight, Clemson should win the ACC. Their really big contender they have to really worry about is Louisville, and I believe that they actually play them this week. And if they can get by them, I think Clemson walks through the ACC and finds their way into the Final Four. Speaking of Louisville, we'll go right into them because that's the next game I'd like to speak about. Louisville just played UNC. Let me tell you something. Lamar Jackson has put on a clinic this year, an absolute clinic. Both games, amazing. Last year's Heisman Trophy winner, against North Carolina, he just racked up 525 total yards and 6 touchdowns. He passed for 393 of them, and he ran for 132. That's incredible. In 2 games, just 2 games, he has over 1,000 plus all-purpose yards. 771 are just passing. The others on the ground. That's a pretty good stat there. It's very, very big. But UNC hung around in that game. At the start of the 4th quarter, UNC was leading that game 28-27. So UNC was in it. I don't know if they had the Indiana-itis like they were playing when they played against Ohio State and just said, or if Lamar Jackson just took it to that next level. Because Lamar did it. Also, Louisville came up with 2 big 4th down stops in the 4th quarter. Their defense stepped up to that level like they needed to do on 4th down. That's what wins you games, is when your team can step up late in a game and shine. UNC went down, they went up. Total yards were way lopsided in that game. Louisville had 705 and UNC had 401. They doubled, they 1.5 times their yards. Lamar Jackson is a weapon that you have to worry about, and UNC watched him, but I think they lost grips of him in the 4th, and that's when they turned it on. My takeaways from that, Lamar Jackson's a machine. You have to watch him. If he plays like that all year, there's no reason that kid can't win the Heisman. Or at least be there in New York to try to reclaim it again, because his numbers are amazing. He's carrying that team. He's running. He's passing. And his defense is helping him out as well. If a team plays like that, I don't see why they couldn't pull the upset against Clemson, although I think Clemson still wins that game. If they play like that and Clemson has a bad game, Louisville could pull the upset and be your ACC champions. So don't doubt Louisville, and definitely don't doubt Lamar Jackson, because he can win the Heisman. Another very interesting game that happened, and that one was the Stanford-USC game. Man. 42-24. USC won. David Shaw. David Shaw, in my mind, probably the second best coach in college football, right behind Jim Harbaugh. He says, they're a very good team, and he knew it. And he had his team prepared, I think, but I think they just got overmatched by USC. Sam Darnold came in there, was 21 for 26, 316 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Didn't have the greatest game. He had 4 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. That's fine. He carried his team to the win. That's all that matters. He was very poised once he got in there, though, and got himself set. The yard totals were crazy. USC had 623 total yards. Stanford had 390. They doubled what they did in yard production. Sam Darnold just played the game, and they had to worry about him throwing the ball so much that they could open up the running game, and then go right back to the passing game with Darnold. They had 2 turnovers and still had 223 yards. Imagine if they didn't have those 2 interceptions by Darnold. That would have been crazy. USC pulled out 28 first downs. 28. So Stanford's D did not step up when they needed to, because if you give up 28 first downs, you're tired. When you're tired, you can't get off the field. So that offense is going to walk all over you. And they gave up 28 first downs. That's incredible. Sam Darnold just worked methodical and used the field and got it. Stanford won 8 out of 11 meetings of this matchup here. 8 of them out of 11 since 2007. They snapped their 3-game losing streak, USC did, because USC lost the last 3 times they've played. So now USC has got 1 up instead of being 4 down. Which, when you have a player like Sam Darnold, they only come through college once in a few years, you have to take advantage of that. Stanford also had awesome players years before that. They had Andrew Luck, they had Kevin Hogan, both quarterbacks come out of there, and they had Christian McCaffrey. So they had great players as well. USC this year just had the upper hand with a better player, Sam Darnold. Takeaways from this game, man, was that the defense needs to get better, especially for Stanford. Their defense has to step up if they're gonna play against these big teams like this. I mean, they still got to play UCLA. They still have to play these big offensive teams out there in the West Coast. So they need to step that up for sure. What's up with Sam Darnold next? The sky's the limit for that kid. The kid is really good. He's obviously still in the running for the Heisman, but he has to keep his numbers up. If he doesn't, that's really going to hurt his Heisman running, and he has to carry that team and be a leader. And he's showing that now. So basically, Darnold has to just stay the way he is. And David Shaw, man, what can you say about David Shaw? David Shaw, there's a lot of rumors spreading around about David Shaw that he could possibly go be a head coach in the NFL for the Colts. And I said on my podcast months ago that David Shaw is a franchise guy to build a team around. Do I think he goes? I don't know. I think he has a really good home at Stanford, and I would hate to see him leave Stanford. But for a team to build a franchise around someone, I think David Shaw is a guy to go do it. So what's next for David Shaw? Not really sure. It's up in the air. It's still early. But all I know as of right now, David Shaw has to keep his head into Stanford, and he's got to get that team playing defense. Their offense is okay, but their defense has to step up what the teams are going to be playing down the road. The matchup of them all last week was number 2 versus number 5, Ohio State and Oklahoma. Let me tell you, I thought that was going to be a really good game, but boy, it was not. Oklahoma came in there and walked the dog, 31-16. The number 5 team walked in there to Ohio State Stadium and made him look terrible. I mean, terrible. I mean, Baker Mayfield went crazy on them. He threw for 386 yards and 3 touchdowns. Think about that again. That is one of the best defenses in the country with Nick Bosa, Tyquan Lewis, and he threw for 386 yards and 3 touchdowns. That kid's the deal right there. And even Urban Meyer himself said it. Urban Meyer's quote was, where is this quote? He says, it was awful. That's a very good team with a very dynamic quarterback. He's not lying. That kid is dynamic, man. I mean, he's amazing. Then after the game, Baker takes the flag, runs around the field, and runs out where the band is for Ohio State, and goes to the O, and he tries to plant the Oklahoma flag in the middle of the field. Well, first it didn't work because it's turf and it wasn't going to stick, but you all get the gist behind why he did it. Well, they asked him, why did you do that? Well, he took offense to what happened last year when Ohio State beat them. Ohio State beat them. Ohio State then went to the sidelines and stood in front of a section of Ohio State fans and sung Ohio State's fight song. I would take disrespect to that as well. My home, it's where I am. It's where we play. And you come in there and you sing your fight song in front of... I understand you have fans all over the world. But you don't do that at another place's stadium. So he took offense to that. And I understand where the offense came from. But I also understand where he came from in sticking that flag there. But doing that, now he's done put himself to the same level as they were last year. Do you really want to do that? You won. They didn't. You've already got the upper hand. So why do you want to go out there and do that? I understand it hurt last year when they did that. But be the bigger man and say, hey, we won. I got the upper hand. That's all you gotta say, you know? So I get what he did. I don't get what he did. On the Ohio State side of the ball, J.K. Dobbins was the bright star of the day. That's really all there was for Ohio State. You know, he only had 72 yards and a touchdown. That's all he had. He didn't go crazy like he did against Indiana. He also played a better defense with Auburn. So I understand the numbers were down, but I expected a little bit more production out of him than that, especially seeing that J.T. Barrett couldn't hit anything all night. And if your leader can't do it, you have to have that other person to pick it up. And I understand J.K. Dobbins is a freshman, but he's supposed to be your second man, and he has to pick it up when your quarterback is struggling. He's struggling right now through the last 5 games. He's struggling. J.T. Barrett through the last 5 games only has 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and 3 of those touchdowns were against Indiana in the opener, whose defense is not very good. So think about that. He has 3 touchdowns in 1 game, and he has 1 left for 4 games. And he had none against Auburn in an interception. So JT Barrett is struggling right now. So who's that leader going to be? I think J.K. Dobbins could be that leader, but he needs to step it up a little bit more than 72 yards and a touchdown. So my takeaways there are that Ohio State still has a shot to make the playoffs. They've lost before early in the year and made the playoffs. Is it going to be a tough road? It's going to be a very tough road to make the playoffs with a loss. But at least the loss came to a non-conference opponent that was not in the Big Ten. So they can still win the Big Ten and get in on the Big Ten. But we saw how a championship really reacts to getting into the playoffs. Penn State won it last year and didn't get in. Ohio State did. So would winning it give them a better shot? Yes. But at the same time, this one loss could hurt them. So they still have a shot to make it. The Big 12 is here. Let me tell you. Oklahoma put a statement on it that they're for real. I understand that they're ready to play football. They did it with Lincoln Riley, first-year coach, second game. Bob Stoops was in attendance to watch that game with his family. He was pumped up. And I was really cool to see Bob be able to sit there and just enjoy a football game, especially after giving out everything he's gave to Oklahoma through all those years. And to watch a friend that he really put a lot of work into in Lincoln Riley to become that coach and watch him run that system. I think that's really cool for Bob, and I think it was really cool for Oklahoma fans to see. And I'm pretty excited to watch Oklahoma to see what this Lincoln Riley guy can do with Baker Mayfield. Because if he can keep this going, the sky's the limit for that guy. And he has a very good program that Bob Stoops has built. And I think the Big 12 has a shot to go somewhere. Let's talk about the Heisman Trophy. Never too early to talk about that, is it? Not in my mind. Well, Sam Darnold, front runner. He was a 9-2 to win it. He currently has a completion rate of 74.6, and he has 4 TDs and 4 interceptions on the year. It's okay. It's not great. 2 games. Completion rate's good, but the interception to touchdown rate, not real ecstatic about that. He's throwing 1-to-1. So that's got me a little on edge. Lamar Jackson, wow, has over 1,000 total yards, 771 passing, like I said. He has an amazing year going so far. And you can't judge him out because he won the Heisman last year and he looks just as good this year. Shaquan Barkley has 28 rushes for 260 yards and only 3 touchdowns. Does he look good? He looks good, but I still don't put him as my front runner. The next one, obviously, Josh Rosen. That is my front runner. Another big game for Josh Rosen against Hawaii. Threw for 329 yards and 5 touchdowns. That gives him 820 total yards and 9 touchdowns on the year. Thank you, Mr. Josh Rosen. I understand it was against a non-conference opponent, Hawaii, but he still put the numbers up. At the end of the year, or as of right now, if you look at these numbers are looking really good on paper. Quarterback, running back, whoever. His quarterback numbers look really good. I would put him, as of right now, maybe second to Lamar. But I would still give it to Rosen because I think he's had a better performance all around. and looked more poised and brought his team back from areas that needed to be brought back and showed he's a leader. Because being a Heisman, I understand, is about numbers, but he is an awesome leader. Brought the team back to beat Texas A&M. 35 unanswered. That has something to go for right there. I mean, shows you're a leader. The numbers are there. Josh Rosen's still my favorite to win the Heisman. Lamar Jackson, probably the front runner right now. Mine's Josh Rosen. Oh, boy. Let's segue to the NFL. Week 1. Oh, man. Was it crazy. Week 1, they had the opener. Chiefs versus the Pats Thursday night. They had this big celebration to say, hey, we're the champions coming out. All these old Pats players coming out, holding the trophies, playing all this music, dropping the banner, and all that woohoo went away real quick. Let me tell you. They got beat 42-27 by the Chiefs. Nobody saw that coming. Everybody said the Pats are going to go undefeated this year. Well, let me tell you something. The Chiefs came in and said, nope, not going to happen. Because Alex Smith knows that he has to play right now. He's basically fighting for his job. He's been through this scenario before. He went through it in San Francisco. Younger quarterback. They drafted. That was setting behind him that he knew was there to replace him in Colin Kaepernick. He got hurt. Kaepernick came in. He knows that Patrick Mahomes out of Texas Tech, is a good quarterback. And he knows that he's next in line. And if he doesn't perform, he's going to lose his job. Alex Smith still has it. And he stepped it up. And in an Andy Reid offense, he's got it. He's got it. He fits perfect. So Alex Smith knows his game is on the line. Or seasoned career. Everybody's talking about this is his last year, and then Mahomes is coming in. I don't think he wants that, and I'm sure he's going to fight for it. Also, their running back, Kareem Hunt. Man, his first game, goes out there, gets his first touch, and fumbles the football. Well, man, that hurt. That hurt him. But that's when you look at those young players, and you find out what they're going to do. Because if he went out there and just was like, oh, pity me, and didn't recover from it, then that looks bad on him. But guess what? He did, boys. Let me tell you. He had 17 carries for 148 yards and a touchdown. He received the ball 5 times, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he had 3 touchdowns in that game and went crazy for 246 all-purpose yards against the Patriots defense. And everybody thought the Patriots had an amazing defense. Their defense is all right, but it's nothing without Dante Hightower. Hightower is that defense. Without Hightower, they have no defense. He's the one who runs that and makes that defense who it is. And Hightower went down. The defense fell apart. And Kareem Hunt looked amazing. The fantasy owners who had him loved it, especially in week 1. He put up some staggering numbers in fantasy football. He looked really good. Although I don't think he was the best performer of a rookie over the first week. I think it was Dalvin Cook. But a lot of people fight that it was Kareem Hunt. Dalvin Cook in my mind. But Dalvin Cook just looked more fluent. Alex Smith just became the first quarterback against the Pats to throw 4 touchdowns, no interceptions against Bill Belichick in 17 years. He scored 42 points. That's the highest that Bill has led. And he had 4 touchdowns and no interceptions against them. Alex Smith came in there to play. And I don't know if it was the Pats D, but I'm going with a little bit of both. I'm going with Alex Smith was ready to play, and the Pats D looked terrible. And if the Pats want to do anything, they need to figure that defense out. And Brady, boy, don't even get me started on that. Brady's showing his age. I mean, he missed Gronkowski wide open, which that's okay, you know. But he was 16 for 36. He missed 20 passes. 20 incomplete passes he missed. He had 267 yards, no touchdowns, and a QBR of 35.1. And that's a Super Bowl contending quarterback? No. That's terrible. I don't know where that's coming from. They shut Gronk down. The defense did. Eric Berry single-handedly took Rob Gronkowski out of that game. He was irrelevant. So guess what? Now, Tom Brady does not have his favorite target to throw it to, Julian Edelman, because he's out for the year with an ACL tear. So now he has to find another target to throw it to. He has to throw it to a Brandon Cooks. He has to throw it to a Chris Hogan or somebody like that. And they don't have the system down yet, and they're not a Julian Edelman. Tom Brady's showing his age. I think that Tom Brady possibly could be on his way to Cincinnati, like I was saying, because Andy Dalton's struggling in Cincinnati, and I don't think they want to lose Jimmy Garoppolo. So I still believe that he's showing his age, and the Pats could possibly let him go and ship him to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati take Tom Brady because he's showing his age. The Patriots also showed how hurt they were that they didn't have LeGarrette Blount. I mean, boy, LeGarrette Blount was their running back. That's who they need. Their current running backs are James White and Mike Gillislee. Gillislee had 3 touchdowns on 45 yards, so he basically punched it in from the 5. He had 15 carries to do that too. So the running game is not there. LeGarrette Blount is hurting on their running game. And the way I look at it is they're spending so much money for Tom Brady that it's hurting their defense. And their O-line's not really protecting Tom as good as it could. And their offense lost their big weapon now. Gronkowski got shut down against Eric Berry. And Edelman's out for the year. So now he has to find that other weapon. Hopefully it's Brandon Cooks. Hopefully he can step into that spot and feel that. But I think they spent too much money, and now their defense is really struggling because Brady is taking a lot of money, and Belichick thinks he can get these young guys to run the system that he had, but these guys aren't built to run that system. So now they got to change their whole defensive scheme to make it work for these players. And I think that's going to be a challenge for them, but I think the Pats can figure it out. If anybody can do it, Coach Belichick can do it. Belichick, Matt Patricia, and Josh McDaniels are amazing coaches. And I think those will be the guys that can definitely figure it out. My takeaways from that were the Patriots defense needs to be worked on. Without Dante Hightower, they're nothing. Chiefs looked amazing all the way around. Defense looked amazing. Their offense with Alex Smith and Kareem Hunt looked holy smokes. If they play at that rate all year, they're going to be tough to beat. Very tough to beat. That's my takeaway there, that the Chiefs are tough to beat, and the Pats need to work on that D. If they don't work on the D, you can kiss them making it to the Super Bowl goodbye. Another one, pretty heartwarming game here for both of these teams. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they just got hit by a hurricane there in Jacksonville, Florida. And the Houston Texans, both of them playing with heavy hearts in this game here, so both of them wanted to win for their city. But the team that prevailed was the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's not a mistake there, folks. The Jacksonville Jaguars won 29-7. Yes, sir, they did. Leonard Fournette, the rookie that they drafted out of LSU, ran for 26 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown in his first career game. That's what I'm talking about right there. He looked good. Also, the person I think that made the biggest improvement for the Jaguars was Blake Bortles. I mean, remember we were talking on here on the last take with Michael and Dano about Blake Bortles threw 5 interceptions in training camp. Well, guess what? In game 1, live game, he threw 0 interceptions. 0. He threw 11 for 21, 125 yards, and a touchdown with no INTs. That's very impressive to me because old Blake Bortles would have probably threw 1 or 2 against Houston's defense, considering they have probably one of the best defenses in the NFL with J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, and Brian Cushing, a linebacker. So they have one of the best defenses, and he didn't throw an interception. That's pretty stellar to me to show that Blake Bortles has settled himself down to be a football player and ready to go for the year. And I think it's really enlightening to the Jags to see him do that. They snapped their 6-game losing streak against Houston. Houston has beat them 6 games straight, and they snapped it with this win. J.J. Watt made his return after missing 13 games last year. He plays the game, and he literally breaks his finger, and the bone comes out the side. The man goes over to the sideline, gets his finger fixed, comes in, finishes the game. I mean, a bone was hanging out the side of the guy's finger, and he never checked up. If that doesn't show that the man has desire and wants to play, I don't know what does. I understand he missed 13 games last year, but he was really hurt last year. And now he comes back, and he hurts his hand, and he never leaves the game. He only had 1 tackle with no sacks, but still, it was his first game back. Give him a little bit of time, let him get back into the rhythm of it, because full contact in a game is way different than full contact in practice. And I think it's going to take a few games, and J.J. Watt will be back to form, and everybody will be saying, here he is. Houston made a big statement there in that game. They started Tom Savage, and they were down 19-0 at half. They pulled out Tom Savage and put in the rookie Deshaun Watson out of Clemson, which they moved up from 13 to 12 in the draft to get this year. They moved up 1 spot to get him, and they put him in. Well, let me tell you something. Deshaun, he looked pretty good, not going to lie. He went in, and he was 12 for 23, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Guess what? I think Deshaun Watson's going to be the starting quarterback in Houston. I think they'll put Savage on the bench, and they'll give this rookie a shot. He looked very poised. I understand he's doing interception. That was nerves, game 1. But he looked very poised, looked confident, and ran the offense very, very fluently. So my takeaways from that game are that they're going to have a new quarterback in Houston. It's obviously going to be Deshaun Watson. He's very talented, and he looks very poised. Not saying he's going to have the poise that Dak had his rookie year, but this kid has a lot of poise. And I think if he keeps his head on straight, he could be the franchise quarterback there in Houston. Houston's D. I think it's going to take a little time for Houston's D. That's another thing I'm taking away on. Houston's got a lot of defensive players, a lot of good ones. But some of them are coming back from injury, and they got to get that figured out. And then they just got 1 suspended, which I'll tell you about later on in the show. And that's going to hurt. So the takeaway is Houston needs to find a way to make that defense stand strong and stop. Because that's who they are. You think of Houston, you think of defense. They have weapons on offense, but when I think of Houston, I think of a defensive team because of all the defensive players they have. Jacksonville, boy. They look good. If they play like this, I don't see why they can't possibly even win the division in the AFC South, because the Colts aren't going to do it without Andrew Luck. Marcus Mariota looked all right, but they got beat, and they just beat Houston. If Jacksonville plays football and gets progressively better through the year, we could be talking about the Jags in the playoffs. I mean, that's incredible. One of the worst teams, and now we're talking about them being in the playoffs. So it shows how wild stuff can change over an offseason. And my takeaway is that the Jags didn't have that bad of a team last year. It wasn't the greatest, but they worked on a lot of stuff, and they got a way better offensive line now. And Bortles has time to throw that ball, and that's what he needed. So watch out for the Jaguars. I still pick the Titans to win the division, but watch out for the Jaguars. They could possibly take a wild card spot out of the AFC. That's my takeaway on the Jags. The other one, boy, Colts, Rams. Colts, another team in the AFC South that we were just speaking about. The Colts got throttled in that game. 46-9. I mean, I don't even know if they showed up. I think they stayed in Indiana, according to what I saw in that game. They looked terrible. I mean, Jared Goff had 21 of 29. He missed 8 throws. That's all he missed. The Colts defense couldn't stop him. Couldn't do nothing. He had 306 yards. 1 touchdown. And that's a kid that went 0-7 last year as a starter. And he went into Indy, a team that everybody thinks is one of the better teams in the NFL, and they just walked the dog on him, and so did he. Now, I'm not saying Indy had a great defense at all. I'm just saying that Jared Goff looked good, and he did it with a first-year coach, the youngest coach in modern NFL history. That was a kid's first game. The coach is only 30 years old, Sean McVay. And he went in there, and he won his first game against the Colts. And they didn't just win it by 2 or 3. They stomped them. They looked good. I mean, really good. And I was blown away by the way that they played that game and how bad the Colts looked. The biggest problem the Colts have is quarterback right now. Huge problem. They don't know what they're doing there. I mean, Andrew Luck's hurt. They've already announced he's out for week 2. He didn't play week 1. So they started Scott Tolzien. And, oh boy, he's not very good. His 4th career start. He had 128 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 INTs. So, during the couple weeks ago, probably during, just during preseason, actually, the Colts talked to New England and got Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is a kid they drafted out of North Carolina State, and he was their 3rd-string quarterback. The Colts gave up Philip Dorsett. Not a great wide receiver, not a great one, but he is an asset. He's one of your better ones you had in Indy. Now you pretty much have T.Y. Hilton as your wide receiver that everybody thinks of. I knew who Philip Dorsett was because I'm from Indiana, not a Colts fan, but my parents are huge Colts fans, so I know who Philip Dorsett was. I think he's really going to fit in great in New England because he's got Tom Brady as a quarterback. He'll fit in great there. So we bring in Jacoby Brissett. Well, the Colts put him in the 4th quarter, and he looked pretty good. Not going to say he looked great, but he looked pretty good. He was 2 for 3 with 51 yards, and he only played 1 quarter. I think that's pretty good. The Colts, they got to figure out the running game. My God, they got to figure it out. They have the offensive line. There is no offensive line there. I don't know what they got, but they need to work on that because a combined 24 carries for 75 yards in the whole game. 75 yards in a whole game for running. That's all you had? And you have Frank Gore and Malcolm Mack. Frank Gore ran 10 times for 42 yards. Mack ran 10 times for 24 yards. Those were your 2 leading rushers for Indianapolis. And you had 75 total yards running a football for a whole football game. And you have Frank Gore. Frank Gore is a guy that people, I know he's up there in age, but people think Frank Gore used to be a machine. But the offensive line's so terrible in Indy, he can't run. I don't care who you are. You can't run in Indianapolis or anywhere if you don't have an offensive line. I don't care who we bring there. My takeaways from that game are, well, trouble for the Colts. Everybody says that they're bad. Oh, they're bad. Let me tell you. The Colts could possibly be the 2nd worst team in the NFL if they don't get Andrew Luck back. They would be fighting for the 1st draft pick in the draft if they don't have Andrew Luck. Because Andrew Luck is the guy who makes that team go from bad to good very quick. And if he's not there, they have nobody there to replace him that can stand up to the talent and knowledge that kid has. They've already named their starter for next week. It's Jacoby Brissett. So they need to get Andrew Luck back as soon as possible. If they don't, it's really going to hurt the Colts season. That's the takeaway I got there. And the Rams, man, they look good. Jared Goff came in. He showed why he should have been the number 1 pick. After starting 0-7, Sean McVay shows, hey, I may be the youngest coach in NFL history, but I got it. Let me tell you. So that there I think is going to work very well. They just got to keep it going, and it's very good for the NFL to have a team in the city of LA that plays good football. So I think that's good for football as well. Now the big game, big one that everybody was worried about, wanting to watch, loved it. Cowboys and Giants. Yes. So that was a pretty barn burner right there. It was 19-3. The Cowboys won that game. Zeke played. That's what I can say. There's a whole lot of stuff going on with Zeke right now. that he could possibly play out this whole year. A lot of people didn't think Zeke would even play one snap until week 6. Well, guess what? Zeke's possibly going to play all this year. So the fantasy lovers are loving it because Zeke could be back. He didn't have a stellar game. It wasn't amazing. He 24 carries, 104 yards, and no touchdowns. But when Zeke's on the field, you have to pay attention to him. But you also have to pay attention to Dak as well because they're both quick. Dak's mobile and can throw. Zeke, fast. He gets the ball, bang, gets one cut, he's gone. So the Giants had to really pay attention to both of them. And I think that's going to help Dallas out a lot if he is there because that opens a lot of stuff up with him on the field, especially as versatile as Zeke is. Jason Witten, pretty excited about that. Caught a TD pass, the only one in the game. And he broke the franchise record for receiving yards for a Dallas Cowboy. That's pretty cool. Jason Witten, been there forever. And you got to think about the greats that have been in Dallas, man. Michael Irvin, Des Bryant, T.O., all these guys, and Jason Witten owns that record. It's pretty incredible. So congratulations, Jason Witten, on that record. Dak, man, he looked good. Very calm, very cool, and ready to just play football. Interesting thing on Dak here is Dak's played in 17 games. In 17 of those games, or 17 games, and 14 of those games, he has not thrown an interception. If he doesn't throw an interception within the first 2 passes of this week's game that he plays, he'll have the least amount of interceptions for the first 500 completed passes or attempts in NFL history. That is incredible. And that was a kid that was drafted late. Nobody saw the potential in this kid, but guess what? Jerry Jones did. And they got him. And they brought him in there. And they make it work. And I think the Zeke and that offensive line with Dak are what build that team. And the city of Dallas loves it. And it's great for football when Dallas plays good. Because a lot of people like Dallas football. But there's a lot of people who don't. And the people who don't want Dallas to do bad. But that gives them something to watch and hope for. But the people who like them are like, come on, Cowboys. So that makes football good. I mean, really good for America when the Cowboys do good. The Giants, on the other hand, not so good. They lost that game. Odell Beckham didn't play. That was Eli Manning's 200th start. It's not that big of a deal. OBJ didn't play because if he would have had a whole lot of yards, they would have known they were going to lose. Because the Giants have a losing record when Odell has over 100 yards. Don't know why, but they do. So I guess it's good that he didn't play because that gave him a better chance, I'd say. Although he was a weapon that would have really, I think, been good to have for them to have to worry about. Moving with that, the Giants have to win week 2. If they don't win week 2, then they have an 8% chance of making the playoff. They'll be 0-2, and that gives them an 8% chance to make the playoffs. Think about that. Would you go to Vegas and put money on the Giants to do anything after that? Would you bet on something? Would you get in a car? Or would you do anything that has 8% chance? If they don't win that game, their chances of making the playoff, done. And that's really, really bad because Ben McAdoo is definitely probably on the hot seat there, I'd say, in New York because they want to perform. And I don't want to see New York have to go through all that, especially with a Manning, because a Manning has a big name in the NFL. And it's hard to watch Eli struggle. I got a soft spot in my heart for all the Mannings, Archie, Peyton, and Eli. So it's hard to watch Eli struggle, but at the same time, they got to figure it out as a team, because if they don't figure it out, they're not going to make the playoffs, and they have to figure it out quick. So my takeaway is the Giants have to figure it out. Offensively, for sure. Defense was okay, but Eli's got to quit turning the football over. He's got to quit doing that. If Eli can quit turning the football over, they'll be fine. And they have to be able to hang with the teams in their conference to even have a shot. The Cowboys, wow, they're not going to have any problems. Let me tell you, they're rolling right now. And if Zeke's in the whole year, wow, I don't see why the Cowboys can't easily win that division and walk away and probably make it to the NFC Championship game. There were some big injuries, man. A lot of them this week in football. And it hurt a lot of fantasy. And it hurt a lot of people who are fans of teams. Cardinals running back, David Johnson, on the IR. Had wrist surgery. He can come back after 8 weeks, but they're expecting 2 to 3 months. That's a big blow to Arizona, because David Johnson was a weapon in the backfield that you had to worry about to open the passing game up for Carson Palmer to hit Larry Fitzgerald. Well, now that they don't have that threat in the backfield like they used to have, it's really going to hurt their productivity. And I don't know if Arizona is going to have the time with the games of David Johnson after he comes back from this to recover and make it to the playoffs. Big loss there. Another big loss, Jags lose Allen Robinson, wide receiver. Season-ending IR for a torn ACL in his left leg. You never like to see anybody go down with a leg injury, especially when it's an ACL, because those are hard to recover from. And especially when it's one of Blake Bortles' favorite receivers. And that's going to be hard to recover from, because we saw that in New England with one of the best quarterbacks and Tom Brady having to figure out how to recover from not having Julian Edelman. It's going to be hard, and I don't like to see anybody go down with leg injuries, but that's going to make the season even tougher for Jacksonville to make it to the playoffs. Another one, Eric Berry, safety for the Chiefs, played all shut down on one of the best tight ends in football, if not the best tight end in football. He's out. He tore his Achilles tendon. He's out for a season ending. They're talking 6 months for him to be able to start running again, or even to just be able to move in football. That's incredible. I know that has to be painful, and he said in a statement, I'm going to come back better than I ever was. I hope he does, because Achilles injuries are hard to come back from, and for the Chiefs' defense to lose a leader like that is really going to hurt their defense. So now they're really going to lean on Alex Smith and Kareem Hunt to produce on the offensive side of the ball. So if they don't, the defense is just going to not have the stars that they had like they did there. I mean, yeah, they still got Houston, but he's a defensive end. You got to have a guy who plays in the secondary that's a star as well. And without him there, I think they're going to struggle on the defensive side of the football. Also, Andrew Luck. They announced he was out for week 2. Rumors are going around that Andrew Luck could miss to the middle of October to the late of October with his shoulder injury. I don't know if there's more there or not, but the circumstances believe there's more there. He had shoulder surgery during the offseason. You would assume he's fine. Cam Newton had shoulder surgery during the offseason and is already playing. I think there's more there than the Colts may be leading on. I think there might be a shoulder problem, but I think the shoulder problem he has is more shoulder and neck. I think he has a shoulder and neck problem just like Peyton had. I don't want that to be the case, but it could be. And if that is the case, why not leave Luck out the whole year and go get you a franchise quarterback in a Josh Rosen or a Sam Darnold or a Mason Rudolph or a Lamar Jackson? Because this is a year to go get one out of the draft. This is a stacked draft class for quarterbacks. But if Andrew Luck is fine, get you a running back. That's what you have to do. And if it's going to endanger him from getting hurt any more than he is, leave him off this field this year. It's not worth injury to him to go win football games. Another one, Danny Woodhead, running back for the Ravens, out 4 weeks, possibly more. More realistically, they said 6 to 8 weeks. Hamstring injury. We all know that last year he tore his ACL in San Diego. I almost said LA there, so I had to stop myself. San Diego. And ended his season there. He just signed a 3-year deal with with the Ravens. And he's already hurt in week 1 with this right here. So he could miss 6 to 8 weeks. And another thing that came out was Texans linebacker Brian Cushing suspended 10 games for a second tested positive of performance-enhancing PED drugs. Man, that's a crushing blow to the defense right there. When you think of Houston, like I said, think of their defense. And when you lose one of your stars, that hurts your defense. Same thing like Kansas City. It hurts your defense. So that was exciting stuff in football. We have another exciting week coming up in the NFL and in college. I'm excited, and I can't wait to watch it, get in here and give you guys my opinions on what I feel what happened. So tune in next week for episode 5 of The Red Line.